What's up? How are
Hello,
you?
hello.
Okay,
Uh,
we are live.
we are live. Great. I'm gonna rename myself to Future Infinitive so people recognize who I am. Um, Not that they, because they wouldn't without the name put several times on the screen.
I know exactly what you mean.
How's
I haven't
everyone?
figured out grid view on this frickin' Zoom app. I'm struggling here. Let's see.
Grid view, you mean where all four of us are on?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I thought that
Oh,
was default.
Should be on the
Let's
top.
see.
It says view.
Multi-speaker. That's what I was looking for. Perfect. Now we're all visible.
Tech genius.
There you
we do for a living, so that's why
I
we
know.
on the weekends. We used it all up during the week.
It's all gone, right?
You only have so much computer juice in your computer juice tank that
Legitimately.
brain
That's why I'm
like
joining on my laptop. Yeah, my current one is absolutely fried right now, so we'll
Yep.
see if I could also push on Instagram Live this time for once.
The better you get at computers, the more effective you are at breaking them, I find. In new ways no one else has ever broken them.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah.
just like, oh, I'm the first one to break it in this way. Great news. That's
Power
exactly.
user problems, right?
Yeah.
My experience too has been that those are the kinds of problems where LLMs are the least helpful with debugging, where it's
Yeah.
like
Just
something that doesn't happen often.
Hmm.
yeah. It's like something that's never happened before. Oh, it's never been that your microphone was playing sound, but it really was playing sound and causing an echo. Like, I didn't know a microphone could do that. Uh, so, world seems world seems not super hot, not like it's doing great. Maybe it's on struggle train a little bit.
Things are a little less chill right now.
Yeah, chill level.
It's an
Chill levels
understatement.
are all-time low.
Yeah, yeah.
You're taking people's passports.
Uh,
Hey, there it
like
is. More news.
yeah, it just comes in, you have no control over it.
Non-stop.
Uh yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty worried about that passport stuff. That I we gotta call folks. If y'all are on the stream and you're like, what could I do? Call your reps about that specific one about no, you can't take people's passports away. What are you talking about?
You
Oh
know,
wait, I thought
I
you were talking about
was
the H-1B visa thing. What's the passport situation?
Oh, well, there's a bill in that would just let Marco Rubio take people's passports even if they're citizens because of their affiliation with a T word group,
Oh, we can't even say it,
which
can we?
is also all of the groups now. It's just like if you're in a group, if you're meeting up more than three people, who does that? T word.
Who's
How do
got
we
friends
say
these days?
Who's got friends?
because they designated recently, right, that that an anti-blank, so to speak, got
Yeah,
designated as a T group.
yeah,
I was actually talking with the comrade about this yesterday about how just generally, like, I think to a lot of people it's new because the radius, the scope of it has shifted subtly to a wide variety of people. But the thing I was talking with the comrade yesterday about is that this isn't like, for me as a person of color living in the States, this isn't new. Like 9/12/01, when the Patriot Act got passed,
yeah.
I don't bring it up often, but like my family has a background in political organizing, so we've gotten attention from three-letter agencies for a number of reasons, and I distinctly remember us getting visits from two three-letter agencies. And when my father requested a FOIA at the time, they had my second grade report card in there as well. And that was when it sort of dawned on me. I'm like, oh, as a
so
child, as a person in second grade, I'm already being surveyed to this extent.
yeah,
Well, you're not acknowledging the reality that it's in second grade that T-words start doing their
yeah. That's
T-word indoctrination.
so
Clearly, right? Clearly.
Hmm.
It's
former elementary school teacher. Yes,
Yeah, I can
a little bit, a little tiny
can
bit, yes,
confirm.
but also no, but also a little
yeah.
tiny.
So like that idea of surveillance, I mean, it's been a long-term I guess backdrop that people have been able to ignore or sort of accept. And now we're seeing that long withstanding sort of dormant access or accessibility to this information being utilized, finally being implemented in a manner that isn't, well, I would argue, anti-human rights as a whole.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The thing is, though, you guys, like, I was listening to Hassan talking about this, and it's like, every single thing that they're doing, it fails. Like every court case fails. Every attempt at overreach is getting overturned. Like his $15 billion defamation lawsuit about New York Times was thrown out for being not like a real lawsuit. It's just him throwing a tantrum. It's basically what the judge said, right? Like it's this like desperation and incompetence that comes out in these efforts, and they aren't broadly effective, right? And he was talking about the way that the other late night hosts were reacting to the news this week, as like they were all like ratcheting up the making fun of them because it's like these people are stupid and weak and incompetent, and like if we imagine them as these like mastermind monsters, then that's what gives them the power to be that, right? But like the reality
Absolutely
is like
true.
these are just like weak, stupid people who don't know how to do anything, and everything
Yeah.
they're trying to do is blowing up in their faces.
Yeah, well, I would say like a good, I would say the majority of initial security is to, create the farce, draw an image of impenetrable behavior because it disincentivizes people from even attempting, from, like you were saying, pointing out the flaws in what is still a dangerously monolithic institution, but not in the manner of full-blown, Eye of Sauron level. It's got cracks, it's
Yeah.
got inefficiencies, and also it's just got like a large scope, right? Just flat out by increasing that set of people and amount of data that they're going to shift over and try and comprehend from every average citizen, the tenet of creating that false acceptance rates of everyone. Like you're saying, all the comedians now collectively
Yeah.
doing it. So it isn't just, ABC shutting down one host, it's every host simultaneously. What are you going to do? Take off late night TV from everyone?
I
Well,
mean,
And then they're just going to move to YouTube, and it's going to be unstoppable, and they'll
Yeah.
reach 10 times as many people, just like so many of them have when they've been laid off. Their reach has expanded 10x.
Well, there's something, I forget who said it. I was watching something yesterday, and they said that Trump is a media president. Like if anything else, which I'm really taking to be he's a propaganda president.
right.
Totally.
And I
Totally.
think that there's sort of an interesting relationship to the way that right-wing media portrays small events or ratchets up fear or conservative fear around protests and things like that. Things that are kind of small, but then get the propagandized sort of optics of like monumental. And it's sort of the inverse of that when it comes to right-wing violence right now, or the violence of this regime itself. It's that it isn't necessarily so much different in a lot of the ways that we're like talking about, whether it's like ICE or a lot of the repressive policies. A lot of them very much existed under Biden or under Obama or under any previous president. But right now we're living in a
100%.
weird propaganda, a propagandized version of it, where the cruelty is very much like on display, and it's meant to, and it's I do wonder from like a dialectical or like exposing contradictions approach, if that actually informs maybe some hope, like putting it all on display. Kind of creates an opening, I think, for organizers. I think it creates an opening for people to be like radicalized so much, which just means like to care about people, I guess, or to think that maybe the way things are can be different or should be different.
Right. I think one of the opportunities that we have is to increase our like public reaction to when unjust policies are implemented. I think it is important that we take this cultural moment that is meant to normalize the cruelty and like just slow it down in terms of how critical people are about it and how upset they are about it. And they want to normalize it, and so our main thing is to get really upset about it, right? Like
Mhm.
that's as people who talk on the internet about it, us personally, but it's also just everyone's job to do stuff like march in the streets when due process is taken away from us and things like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think their goal is to really just tire us out, honestly. Like that's why they're doing it all so at the beginning of the president, and so like they really want to just run everybody out of energy. And that's why it's so important that we kind of, like acquire, like whoever's able to do it, do it. And then when you are not able to do it, stop so that you can come back and do it later and not feel like you failed.
Mhm.
When you stop doing it, you didn't fail, you just got tired and then you could come back. Because we're gonna
Yeah.
have to keep it up for 4 straight years. We're gonna have to march in the streets regularly for 4 straight years. And then we have to
Yeah.
march in the
Yeah.
streets regularly for the next 4 years too, because the Democratic presidents don't always, and most of the time, don't really like change or alter the policies that the Republican presidents
Or they're
normalize.
worse.
Yeah, or they're worse, or
Like
they are more
Obama,
and effective with how they use the money.
yeah, like Obama like did extrajudicial killings of like millions of innocent civilians, like all
Yes,
over the world.
Yeah,
yes,
With no,
he also deported more people than Biden and Trump.
yeah,
Like,
Yep.
I think in Trump's
yeah,
first term and Biden or Trump's first year presidency and Biden's first year, it was more than them combined.
yeah,
Yeah. The
yeah,
Yeah,
current border
right,
czar
right.
is from Obama's administration, actually.
right,
Um,
right.
and yeah, no, I mean, Liz, I think you said it best as well, is that like, one of the tenets of fighting this kind of authoritarian framework, so to speak, there's a word for it, that not obeying in advance is one of the key points of it. And like you said, there's an exhaustion, a mental duress that you have to regulate and maintain, because I think people have existed in this space when it comes to theory and morality, in this ideal mentality of what you would do if that scenario existed. Everyone has that idea of how you would protect her. And we're at that point when it comes to the praxis, the actual material situation, like we're here. So a lot of people never really reconciled that gap of how to implement that, or what their personal Rubicon was for saying, okay, now's when I'm going to start to act or do particular things. So I think that exhaustion, that normalization is one of the most insidious parts of it, because people just say, well, I'm tired of it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to think about it right now. That's understandable, because this is a marathon, not a race. You're going to have ups and downs, but recognizing that it is a marathon and you have to maintain some semblance, some baseline energy of saying no and making it a bit more difficult no matter what, even if it's just giving little bits of information in every way you can, because that exhaustion is what creates that like air of non-consent being acceptable for a lot of that behavior. I do think it's a lot of people realizing, and because they're new to the kind of, I guess, framework of oppression that a lot of this imperialism and techno-feudalism has driven us towards, they're new to the idea, so it's overwhelming and it can seem almost futile to fight it. So I guess one of the things that I think we should do maybe today a bit is talk about Opsec. I was wondering if we could cover that a bit, just to inspire, because we talk a lot about how to inspire people, but I do think having material ideas, a framework of comprehension, can help people inform their own ways. Because I think people come to us with requests for silver bullets of how do I somehow enter this government facility without ever being seen and have no
Right.
DNA or anything. It's like, it's not going to work that way. But you can get the general idea of how to personalize something like a threat model for the city you're going to protest in, the neighborhood you're taking care of, things like that.
Right.
I also, before we get into the technical element of, I guess, standing against an authoritarian regime, I'd like to, as someone that finally got settled in LA and is finally doing some mutual aid work here, is like so much of the all out assault on your like cognitive capacity and your like sense of security in the world is on like on stoking division and dissolving trust
Hmm.
in your immediate community. And there's
Yes.
something about going into to work with a group that is trying to help people, that lets you
Mhm.
know that like you're not alone, that if like, because I think so much of it is being like, fuck, I'm like just behind my screen and I'm being attacked by all these things, and my freedoms are being withered away, and my protections are being withered away, and my
Mhm.
sense of security is going away with it. And
Mhm.
when you go out there and you see like a group of people that for no other reason other than their care for their community is out there fucking spending their time, their money, and whatever to just support the people that are most in need, it lets you know that like my baseline is going to be covered because there are people all around me, and if I do it, also that means other people are going to do it too. And I
Yeah.
think that as much OPSEC as we want to talk about is great, but I think there's a silver bullet, and the silver bullet is go to work with Food Not Bombs. Go do a water drop. Go join one of these orgs because they're all over the place, guys. They're in your town, and if they're not in your town, guess what? It doesn't take much to hit up like fucking 60 people that you know, 10 people you know, and get a bunch of food together. Go on a street, give it away to the homeless. Like just
Yeah.
that in itself will fill you up with the radical energy to like to fight whatever is in front of you.
Yes. Yes, it will. Um, community is what keeps you sane, and like that's what also makes you feel like you can take a break when you need to, is also that you've got some people around and you're like, okay, they got it, and then I'll jump back in. And you have that, I need to jump back in. Okay, I really do need to chill out so that I can go jump back in. But if you're not part of a community, then you feel rest guilt because you don't have like an ongoing overarching story that you can be a part of. And
Yeah.
that's a big part of the head game is I am part of a story. My community has banded together to prevent XYZ thing that we don't like. And so then a whole lot of other restorative rest becomes possible, and then you have so much more energy to show up and hang out for 16 hours in front of a detention center or something like that, but you can't spend 16 hours in front of a detention center if you have spent the past week and a half feeling rest guilt, and now it's time to go. You're tired, you're not ready, you'll be there for like an hour and a half, and then you'll head home. And like it's not nothing to put that hour and a half in, but let me tell you, if you feel like you're part of a thing, you can go for 16 hours if you need. And it's a lot better. So I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
that's such a good point to bring up that both of you made. Like, it's said so plainly in things like OPSEC or threat modeling, but the phrase that immediately I thought of when you guys were saying that is, what are you protecting, right? It's so simple of a phrase to just overarch and say, oh, this group of people, but sitting with the impact and the understanding of, well, it isn't just the people, it's the trust, it's the safety, it's the networks of how they're interacting with each other. I want to be able to talk to my neighbor without suspicion that there's a new age McCarthyism that might occur between us. So understanding and developing that solidarity of saying, look, we may not agree on everything, but you, as much as I do, don't want La Migra kidnapping anyone in this neighborhood. So let's agree on that and start from there. And that's
yeah,
where solidarity begins, is with each other.
yeah,
I think like one of the like big aspects of that that's really important is to build hubs in order to facilitate networks and communication, which I think is like a perfect use case for community gardens, and it's a big part of like why I've gotten so interested in that. Because the people who will show up and help with a community garden are the people who will show up and help with everything else, and it's a good way to get people plugged in and to see that they have personal equity and I planted that plant and now people are eating it. And like those people have food because I did that. And you should come help me do it too. And we can
yeah,
put a little like Meshtastic node in the garden and like internet in a box in the garden. And also you can build whole lands which exist essentially exclusively as places for people to come take a break from the action, which is so like the Missouri project, everybody who came, it was like 100 people came to work on that from Atlanta, from Cop C, who like needed a break, and then they like take a month or two and go to the next thing. They went to like back to DAPL for some stuff after that, right? Like so, a lot of these land projects are built for that, and a lot of these community garden projects can become that or can be created in order to facilitate that, which is a big part of why I think it's so important to do that.
And for
yeah,
those of you that feel overwhelmed about like building all this yourself, like James had mentioned earlier, it's already there. You're not the only one who's thought of it. Integrate with an existing one first to begin the ideas. If you see gaps in things that they aren't providing, either understanding of how to integrate with that or supplying it alongside them. I think there's a mentality like that's fighting the capitalists, the colonizer in your head of treating it as a competition, because the idea of mutual aid is so antithetical. It's so like opposite of how we're exposed to it in an educational sense, in a financial sense. It's all this false assumption of a meritocracy around that, but that creates this incentive of saying, I have to be the one to make this, I have to do this. But it's entirely saying, how can I contribute to this?
Yeah. There's no community gardens in my area. No, there's nobody on the list that you looked at. And when you Google community gardens, your town, nobody came up. That doesn't mean that there's no community gardens. It just means that they're probably bad at SEO, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, go to a
We need radical marketers, guys.
Exactly.
like that radical market. We absolutely need those people. Like literally, that's all you can do is like post on the internet about that there are community gardens you found in your area, and you tag your city so that other people who are like you see it. Like that is community service. That actually, you know.
And if you can't find one and there legitimately isn't one, like that's a good reason to create one. And like you can get the government to pay for it. I did the last one, you know, and like it's really not that expensive. Probably most people have like a front yard that they're not particularly attached to, and you could do it there, you know. And it's good to have, like, we don't want there to be a search engine for that, right? Because that's a target list for people who want to destroy communities. So it's good to have lots of them, and it's good to not have a list of all of them. And like, we shouldn't want to
decentralized.
No,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to build the bigger thing that contains all possible initiatives. And like, no, you don't. You want to have an initiative that covers like 40% of the things that people need. And then you need another one over here, unrelated to this first one. And they provide a different set. And then they coordinate, and people in the they cross-pollinate. And then if one goes down, the other one's still around, you know?
There's something that the radical marketer was a joke, but I think that in there is also something extremely important for anyone that's listening. And it was when I was doing just some research on mutual aid. I just finished the Dean Spade book, and then I was making some videos about like types of mutual aid. And I think that so many think they're like mutual aid. I'm doing it's a food bank, or it's a you know, something like that. Like mutual aid is you deciding that you have the skill, you have the ability to contribute something. You have a very particular skill. You are hired by a capitalist to do something, but that skill is useful to everyone else, most likely. You know, your ability to do marketing, something so stupid, whatever, for the capitalist machine, that is a skill to help like get people aware of things that are happening. That's a skill there. And you can offer that skill, the thing that you're already good at, to people that are trying to do the things that they're already good at that help. And if you offer that in a non-monetized way, you know, that is mutual aid. And I think that people need to understand that it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be that thing. It's the skills that you have. If you offer those to other people in need, that's mutual aid.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Our most popular group that we've ever run is the, come on, we're all getting in the same room and applying for a passport. Like, I've run this like a bunch of times, and it's like the most popular thing, and it's really simple stuff. Do you like it? And it's like helpful for a lot of people who, you know, they don't know how to navigate the paperwork process. You do not have to have special magical technical knowledge. You do not have to teach underwater basket weaving, you know, like from your PhD in underwater basket weaving. Like you can just get people together to fill out a form, and there are some people that right now in their life, right? Something's going on for them that they need to get in a room to fill out a form. They have like 3 questions and no one to ask those questions to, and that you can't really, you're like, wait, you know, you need somebody who's gone through it. That, like, it's simple stuff like that, you know, it's impactful.
Someone pointed
Also,
out in one of my comments, like, do you guys know people who have yards and whatnot? And I think I just wanted to mention that as well. I think you hit on it as well, Liz, that, your contribution, you shouldn't estimate your own contribution in the vacuum of not asking these mutual aid groups, because sometimes all they literally need is someone who has time. If you have the means of simply being there and contributing in a manner of saying, here's how I direct people, or organizing, like knowing your mutual aid group of what time they show up and where they show up and being there physically already is a type of commitment that if you don't have, a yard or a car or whatever, there's still a way you can impact and contribute. Let that mutual aid group determine if you truly aren't needed there. And they're never going to say that, because there's always something you could help with.
Yeah.
labor is the source of all value.
Preach.
Yes, exactly. All those minerals we use and value, they were extracted through labor, so yes,
Capital didn't build your iPhone, guys. Labor did that.
we did
You
that.
can do anything.
Yes.
Okay, now that we covered that, we can go technical. We can talk Opsec.
It'll come back to it.
Just one other
Yeah,
thing
so
to
like, I
add.
mean, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was at this like wild meeting in the forest a few years ago, and that's when we decided to do all these land projects. And there was this guy there who said something that I'll never forget. That like he had just finished a PhD in utopian intentionalism at Hopkins, and like the way that like the left has lost the capacity to imagine like a better future, like that these grand visions of a better future don't exist anymore, and like how we could start doing that again. And one of the things that he said is like everybody wants to create the next like grand unified theory of everything, like this is the solution to all problems, and it's like that's not only impossible but actively unhelpful. Like the time that you spend trying to do that is harmful. It's not just wasted, it's harmful. And like there are all kinds of things already happening. Probably you should just plug into something. And like maybe at the periphery there is the need for some new stuff, but like really people are already doing all of it. And like you just have to find a way to be a part of the big things that are already happening and imagine how the work you're doing can help improve things and make the world a better place. And you don't have to, like, nobody wants to start a cafe in San Francisco. Everybody wants to start the next $100 billion startup.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not even worth doing anything if it doesn't end in me having $100 billion. It's like that is just entirely wasted effort. It accomplishes nothing for the world, right?
Yeah.
And that like
No,
there are all these little things like feeding people that are way more important and useful and valuable and worth our time.
Yes.
there's so Axiom is working on it with me. I realized that the mean stuff, it was like very much like my face, and I was doing a lot of work, and I was like, let's bring more people in. Everyone has a different perspective, different expertise, da 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 da. And so I've been talking to a few creators that like I respect. I consider them like super radical. And I think that there's a tendency, and this is just exactly what you were talking about, CJ, but in the political landscape, is you're like, I don't know, I don't fuck with DSA. Like I don't like the DSA or something. And I was talking about it like this with a friend Chris, and I was talking about with Axiom, is DSA is a massive organization. It is a massive and influential organization, and it's not as radical as so many people want it to be. And I get that. And a lot of people go on the left because they're trying to build the next utopian fucking singular thing. They're trying to build the silver bullet. And so they're like, okay, this party's not perfect. Their program's not perfect. I'm going to go create a new thing. And that's why we have all the sects, all the sects, all the different parties or groups or whatever.
Yes.
Rather than at least what we can acknowledge is, unlike the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, DSA is actually a democratic institution. It actually operates by democratic principles. And so what you could do is say, okay, let me join a group that does exist, that are trying to do things. Maybe they're not perfect, but if I can go get all of my people to go in and jump into this org, we can use our democratic voice to actually direct this thing in the direction that we want it to go. You know,
Yes.
like this thing is a tool. It is a lever that, given enough hands, we can manipulate it. And
Right.
I think instead of trying to build a new thing because the thing that exists doesn't align perfectly, you know, like,
Yeah.
and this is actually the craziest thing. Sorry to be on a rant.
Oh, good.
Is so many of these people are like USSR heads, you know, they're like democratic centralism. They're like, I fuck with like Stalin or whoever the guy is in the USSR. And I'm like, you know what? The law that they abided by, democratic centralism, it meant let's argue, let's discuss until we vote on something. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
And then we chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
So get involved in a large, if you're doing it just in a political sense, in a large organization that has influence, and use your influence to make that go the direction you want.
Mm-hmm.
As a process nerd, as someone who's really worried about like the outcomes, how do we get all 100% of people to get through a thing, through a sequence, you know, get their information, get their thoughts in, grant them agency and stuff like that. You know, what I found is there's a lot of like comment warriors who will jump in the comments about stuff. You know, I don't like this group because of these 3 points,
Armchair
right?
theorists.
Yeah, it's an armchair theorist. And the thing is, it's not really a very helpful way to have the debate, right? All it really does is create division in the messaging.
Mm-hmm.
The most helpful way to have the debate is, one, write your thoughts down, cite your sources, get real nerdy about the details, right? Two, talk to the leadership with those details, right? Not in a comment. I'm not the leadership. I'm not going to see your comment and call the head of the DSA on the phone and say, well, somebody said a really good point. It's just, I don't have the capacity to do that. I don't have the time and the effort to like take every comment that might sound like a good idea and a technically accurate criticism of, no, like if it's your thought, you got to put it forward in the public sphere, but the comments are like the worst place to do that. Nobody's seeing it, nobody's engaging with it. All you're doing is venting, right? And venting actually does not help because it diffuses all the anger. You feel like you were heard. You have the perception that some people heard you. And if you get a lot of hearts on the comment, then it really feels like people agreed with you and that you
My
did,
idea one.
but you
6
didn't.
people agreed with me.
Like 6 people, even if 150 people in the comments agree with you, not even a tiny fraction of those people saw the comment in comparison to the video. And the real people who are actually able to evaluate that thought you had didn't ever see it. They never saw it, right? And so like it's different than commenting on like a politician's video because there's somebody who has to read those. But like just a random person's video you disagree with, it's diffusing your anger. It's a place for your anger to go and do nothing. Instead, if you nerdily argue your point or you get with somebody who's a little more nerdy than you and you get them to, you know, help you frame your point and like, you know, there are systematic ways, as in engaging with a system, not the system, but like a system, like the Democratic Socialist Alliance's system. That then if you got a cool, great idea and here's the math on it and here's why I think and so on and so forth, your economic theory could be adopted by them if you, instead of taking that anger and venting it into the comments, you get really specific. You get really detailed. You write it all the way out and you get support from people for your framework, for your ideas. And that's like the way to get it done. That's the way to get your thoughts out there, right? And I feel like there's so many of those like sound dampener, like kind of things out there, the comment warrior section, a lot of issues that are sort of distractor issues and that kind of stuff that are about sound dampening, that are about those frequencies, you know.
I think the phrase I immediately thought of when you guys were describing that is perfection is the enemy of progress. And I think one thing, you know, it's a balance to maintain. You know, we're talking about hearts and minds, right? We're talking about radical marketing and how to conceptualize ideas and whatnot. But I think one thing that, and this is by extension most social media, I think one of the more insidious natures that it can provide is it gives you this false feedback loop that what you're doing is actually contributing, like likes and whatnot. When it comes to material effort, right? Like, are your comments helping feed people in your neighborhood? Just because you say blank a triple, like a 3-letter organization that's a type of state of water, are you actually going to the protests? Are you helping locate and staying in communication with groups of people that are identifying where these people are and what they're doing and how to interact with them? The people who aren't commenting and physically at those places are materially contributing towards the practice and praxis of that actual effort way more in terms of the actual world. And I think that's that, we talked about hallucinations and how the sort of entrenchment of misinformation can get bigger and bigger as people have more access to information as well as misinformation. You can sort of dig yourself into this worldview that's absent or devoid of interaction towards your actual world. So people do think in some capacity, like at the end of the day, the 4 of us here versus the 4 of us at an actual mutual aid organization, literally handing out water, I would argue those people are more materially contributing to the ideas that we're putting out here. And that should always be prioritized, I think, as key, is the material impact you're making. The effort of stressing these ideas is to eventually motivate you to take action in your own realm, in your own agency of physicality around you. And I feel like too many people rely on things like owning someone with a like or getting a really great clip or something of the sort. And it misses the forest for the trees in that aspect.
In defense of
I
comment,
just delete all of those.
Yeah.
You know, I delete like half of my comments.
in defense of commenting, this is not anti what you guys have been saying. It's that it's effectively kind of what Liz was talking about, which is like talking to someone to like sharpen your argument, hone your argument. And this is the bit, is if you're going to use comments as a space to try and deepen your analysis, broaden your perspective, understand the responses to something that you're going to say, and maybe actually take those in good faith, or take those as a way to get a better argument. That's good, but the point is, like, what are you doing with your argument? What do you, because if it lives and dies online, that's not real. That's that doesn't do anything. So yes, have a good argument, get all your sources, have a back and forth response with like some piece of shit or something, so that you can have a better understanding of what people are going to say in response to your thing. So you can be like, okay, well, let me take that into account and let me come in better next time. But if you're not going into some sort of real life institution or some real life system or process to apply that argument in a way that has a material impact, then it's an online circle jerk.
Right.
Well, and also I think like we have to like be aware of the, like, for example, Crutches and Spice argument that like all debate culture and like comment threads and videos is an alt-right pipeline and never anything more, and it can never be effective at actually changing anyone's mind. And like creating spaces that facilitate those kinds of debates and comment sections is only helping the alt-right by pushing people towards those positions.
Yes. Yeah. And I gotta recognize positive commenters do a lot, especially on like if you want to be a comment warrior, like comment positively on videos that have a strong call to action for an action you agree with. If you do that, your feed will get better, your algorithms across all social medias will improve, and you'll actually have a whole bunch of actions, one of which is going to really appeal to you, and then you could take that action, right? Like that's like, and that's, I'm like a process nerd about this. Like those kinds of small habit changes will genuinely change your ability to engage meaningfully with activism if you're commenting positively on stuff you agree with. And there's always that little bit of nitty gritty. Well, and I see technically there, and the way that you said, and well, this word is actually the wrong word for that. Like, it doesn't really get you there. But if you're like, this is great, we need more of this, or just like 3 hearts or whatever, like any of that stuff does actually matter a lot. And it will spur you to real action over outrage videos that are just like, this bad thing is happening. Oh no, which sometimes I'm guilty of, but it's usually like, this bad thing is happening at the edge of science and our human understanding, and no one knows what to do. Oh no, So I did get a question from somebody who referenced Diogenes in his like handle, so I have to ask it, which is, how do people contact the High Desert Institute to see about working with y'all?
Yeah, they also posted a bunch of comments on my Twitch, but I can't figure out how to reply from Streamlabs.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that
is
one is
the Discord is linked on the website and all the projects and the social media, and so
yeah.
the Discord is the best way.
I gotta say also on like if you want to organize, sending email is probably the worst thing you could do. An email is most of the time checked by one person or an intern. And so you're either bottlenecked by one human who's
Yeah,
doing a bunch of stuff, or you're talking to an intern. And the leader of the community is not the community. The community is the community. The leader is a person who is standing in as a symbol for the community, but is not the community, and is held outside of the community a little bit because of their symbol status, and it kind of sucks, and so like don't send an email. Get in the Discord, get in the chat, engage with the other people in the community who were drawn by who the leader represents and therefore are pretty much the same person. Like people in my Discords and things like that, in my like matrix are very similar to me. So, same thing
in
with
this
any.
case, they're the ones making like the actual decisions, not me.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's the group.
yeah, yeah. Um, But yeah, that's what I would recommend is like get into the community, get point to point, get peer to peer rather than trying to go to the hub and then get routed out. If you aren't sure where to go to, the leader is not the person to contact. Somebody in the middle of the organization is the person to contact.
Yeah, I also think that there's a tendency to think that like uh I don't know how to explain it, how to articulate this the right way. There's a tendency to think that you're unimportant, you know? And the thing is, the dude that's in the community also doesn't really think that they're that important. Even if they're in that community, they're in that structure, that institution or whatever. And you reaching out to them is meaningful to that person. It
Yeah.
reminds them that they're a part of it. It reminds them that they have a voice. And so like I just think there's a sense of just knowing that like talking to someone that's not the leader is the most impactful thing because those are the people that are actually engaged in doing the daily work. Those are the
Yeah.
people that don't get contacted.
Right.
And
The
in it, yeah,
leader by
yeah,
attention. Other people not overwhelmed by attention. Best way to connect.
exactly. Yeah, and that attention is meaningful for them and impactful for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do a lot there. And the other thing I'll say, and this is sort of a good segue into like the OPSEC thing, is when you introduce yourself to an organization, sending an email to the leader with all of your whole story and like all of the things that make you feel vulnerable about life, like I am a this type of person who is being targeted by this type of person,
Yeah.
like that is compromising information you have sent in the clear across to a computer that sits in Google's server farm. It is read by Palantir and Google's ad network. Like, don't email all your personal details to the leader of the organization. I get that a
Hmm.
lot. And I'm like, I'm trying to help. And people are like, here's all my information. And I'm like, that was for Matrix. Oh no, I'm gonna delete this, but it won't do anything. Resource
Yeah, I
list.
have a folder
No.
for that, but luckily it's on Proton, so hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like the hard thing. So
So
yeah. Yeah.
kind of a way we might segue into OPSEC is to talk a little bit about what's happened with the mesh, and I have an exciting announcement about the mesh.
Yeah, what's up?
So there's these new devices. It's called the Mesh Pocket. It's got the battery lasts for like a month, like it's wild, and it's also a battery bank that can wirelessly charge your phone. Like they're great, 10 out of 10, and I think they're available for sale now. It's really new. But for me, like sticking one in my backpack at Burning Man I was able to easily connect all the group chats with all the different groups. We had like maybe 10,000 people in the group chat. It was crazy. And everybody's able to like share like there's like some emergency, there's some opportunity to help with things, there's food. Diplo is playing at Spanky's because there's a whole group of people that has sworn to like eat him if he shows his face, right?
Yeah.
So like you've got the fans and the people that hate him, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a hater, but I'm not an eater.
You're gonna eat.
It's great, but then so like we're doing another one for Decomp next month, which is official now, and we're gonna have like a booth and talk to people about it, and we're gonna be giving out the nodes and putting people in a group chat for Decomp, which will be super cool because then more people will be on the network. But the other thing that is really like seems really obvious is like we need fox hunters in addition to getting people on the network. We need to be able to find people who are like using it for evil and like resolve the situation by finding the person. So this is another thing that I think is the really important like Opsec piece to understand with any kind of radio transmission is that it's trivially easy to identify where you are in the world, like physically, like
It's
to the
literally
millimeter,
radiating.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So fox hunting is this whole like art and science and hobby of like this person is doing something deliberately disruptive. I'm able to figure out exactly where they are and then go identify them and like get them to stop in whichever way is appropriate. Or you can actually report them to the FCC and they will pay you bounties and prosecute them. So,
Pretty good.
if it was at Burning Man and it's like, well, this person is just like spamming slurs in the group chat, it's like, okay, let's go find them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
outside of Burning Man as well, because we'll have the same kinds of problems. We'll have people using like, like buy 10 of them and put them in router mode, and now the network is broken, right? We need to go find that person.
Yeah.
So we've described a lot of ways to like tackle or consider that idea. And I guess for me, and I don't know about the rest of y'all, the concept of risk, considering threat, danger, that's something people inherently, naturally have an affinity to, just us existing in that space. But in an operations security standpoint, the thing that I always recommend to people to start with in order to prevent this concern, because like imagine if someone is using Meshtastic node and they finally get on the network and they're worried about exactly what you described, CJ, and they're worried that happens with everyone. There's a very quick slippery slope you could fall down of paranoia that disincentivizes you from any communication, because at its core, trust is a vulnerability, and you do have to maintain some semblance of vulnerability. You want to reduce that, but interacting with each other is a type of vulnerability. So to me, in order to reduce that space out of fear, the first thing that I recommend people do is threat model. Understand specifically, what are you protecting? Is it information? Is it a set of people? Could be broad, could be specific. Who's after you? Unfortunately, this will be a gradient of what medium you're using and what topic you're covering. What's the worst that could happen? I mean, depending on the groups, it could be, now your group's location is visible and you might expect, resistance at the location you're doing it. If you're in some more seedier interactions, it might lead to actual enforcement of that. And what resources and capabilities do they have? Now, that last one, I think a lot of people spend a lot of time speculating in that space, and it's extremely dangerous. Just as we started this conversation saying, part of security is obfuscating and hiding actual capability you want to be over-assumed of your abilities and the threat you exist as. And that also works when you're being oppressed in that capacity. So I think a lot of people spend arguably way too much time in that last piece of what resources and capabilities do they have without ever considering those first three questions of what are you protecting, who's after you, and what's the worst that could happen. Because people operate under this capacity of, I have to be full Edward Snowden, downright ghost. I can't have serial numbers on my backpacks and my clothing. And I'm like, you're wearing sunglasses that have your prescription on the outside. Like there's extremely overt things that people just skip over because they want that idea of being secure. Because the reality is it's not very, beautiful or super cool. The deification of that behavior is actually kind of boring. Like, yeah, you gotta kind of separate it. You want to go to a protest at a place, show up a week in advance and study the area so you understand it. Get coffee nearby. It's the boring minutia that determines the backbone of your actual threat model at its core. I think getting familiar with the boring and pulling away from that ideal of, it's not Mr. Robot everywhere, right? It's literally, did you use your card at this train station 6 stops over? It doesn't matter if you used your card versus cash, because if you used it there, then they know you took the train. They know what you bought. Like it's a whole understanding of following that through line from beginning to end. So starting simple, I think, is the first step. God, where do we start with this? Physical security is the first thing I would think of, right?
Yeah. Go to a self-defense class so that you're not scared, and so that honestly your peripheral vision will open up. Like you'll think about not getting cornered in a better way. Like just that. Even if you take your phone to a protest and you Waymo to the protest with your credit card and you have all your locations on and your Bluetooth on, if you just start with I don't get cornered by, stop the kettling is step. That's why it's layer 1. Physical is layer 1 for a reason.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's a huge mental element to feeling like you can defend yourself, which is 10 times, 100 times more important than your actual ability to defend yourself. Whether it's, knowing that you're going to be less reactive in a moment that is scary, and that you can take a breath, you can sit still and react appropriately. Like even something as simple as that is, astronomical. Outside of just like the general, like going around your day to day, things can feel scary. People can seem scary. Trust has been eroded, and knowing like when you're walking down the street that you're like, I have a baseline of security is really, really nice.
Yes, very important. And there are varying levels to like the surveillance state. I mean, all money has a serial number on it, like cryptocurrency will not keep you safe. It's not a replacement for cash with no serial number. It's even more effective serial numbers and chain of custody. So like, no, it's not better. But the baseline stuff like keeping your location off, keeping your Bluetooth off, that kind of thing is pretty basic. The real hard thing though is that if one person is really security aware and then 5 people around them aren't, it doesn't matter that you were security aware. Like it just doesn't matter. And so if what you did was, we're all getting in the car and we're going to get in this one person's car who has a license plate, we're going to park nearby. Okay. But everyone turn off your location and your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi. If you could just do that in the car with the people who are in the car, that's like infinity better than not doing that,
Yeah, but then 5 people's radios turn off in the same place at the same time. Right?
Yeah, it's not going to keep you perfectly safe. It's going to reduce the number of tracking elements by 20%, right? And just like each one of these things, they reduce it by a percentage of the remainder, but there will always be some remainder is the problem, right? Like this is the big thing about computers and phones and security and the United States and the giant surveillance infrastructure we put together is, it's almost impossible to completely defeat. And so this is why it's like, you really have to think about, if I'm gonna put the time and attention in to be a ghost, it better be for something important. Really.
That's all I was thinking about. I'm like, why the fuck are you doing it? Like,
exactly.
What is the reason? Are you trying to go take down a Boeing facility? Like, because if not, it's like, I mean, I was talking to Axiom. I do actually have to go in a sec, but I was talking to Axiom. I'm like, the reason I want to deprive various institutions from my data actually has a lot less to do with like some dark thing that I'm planning, and way more to do with the fact that my data as information is a way for a capitalist company to exploit me to a higher degree.
Yeah.
Bingo.
We were talking about like the new digital price tags or whatever at like a Target or at a whatever. I'm like, the reason I want to limit the amount of information I'm putting out is because the more information out, the more that price is going, that the higher that price at the place, the supermarket, is going to be in 1, 2, 3, whatever years. Limit the amount of information that I put out so that I can't be marketed to as effectively, so that I can't be sold to or exploited to as effectively. When I decide that I'm going to go do some fucking seedy, dark thing to like take down the machine, then I'll ghost, I guess.
Yeah.
At all. Use a different set of materials. Like,
But also, what is your goal? You know, like, what are you trying to accomplish? Right.
What are you protecting? Right.
And,
exactly.
Like, I think a lot of people have this like Red Dawn vision in their mind of like that movie, like, and it's like, you know, that's not real life. You know, like, even when we talk about like all the things that we're most afraid of happening, right? Like, if they just take everyone's passports away, it's like you can still just like walk. You know, like you could. That doesn't really matter in terms of like, you know, we're not all suddenly prisoners in our homes if that happens. Like, you could just leave, right? And you would qualify for asylum in other countries if you did. And, you know, like, a lot of these things that we're afraid of, I think, like, fundamentally we have to keep in mind, like, these people are weak and stupid, and that's why they're overreaching like this. Like, this is incompetence and weakness is what we're seeing. And
they fully do not have the capabilities to do the thing that you're the most afraid of.
Yeah, 100%.
I had a lawyer tell me the other day, they're like, if every single every person that was like had a looming court case or something like that decided not to do a plea deal, if every single one of those decided just not to do a plea deal and to go to court because we have constitutional things about speedy trials and stuff, we would overload the entire court system. It would break down because it doesn't have the capability. Like something so fucking simple. The capacity of the real scary fascism that like looms in your mind, they can't do it. Like they physically cannot do that.
Yeah. Also,
that's also the last thing that I have to say. I'm sorry, guys. It started 2 minutes past, but I had a 12 o'clock stop. I love you all so much. I really appreciate this conversation.
Always good
next week.
I will be here next week.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love and solidarity, comrades.
Love and solidarity.
Have you guys seen the like incredible explosion of jury nullification and the historical precedents? It's like wow. Nobody can get so like famously there's the entire jurisprudence of like Anglo-American law is based on the fundamental argument that all final decisions are made by a jury of your peers. So we have like the laws, we have like the case that the prosecutor is making, and then it's up to the jury, like yes or no, and like they don't have to say yes. The judge will tell you like, you know, this is the law. The only thing you're allowed to think about, did they check these boxes? You're not allowed to decide based on anything else, and you can just say no. And so like right now, this is called jury nullification, right? The jury doesn't have to follow the law. The jury can do whatever it wants, and it's up to you, right? I was in jury selection recently, and there were so many people who were like, I can't be a juror. I hate cops. Cops fucked me over. And it's like, dude, you should fucking be the juror then, right? Like, you are the person who should be on the jury. Like, why are you saying that? Like, just be like, no, I think cops are great. And then it's like, fuck cops when you get into the like deliberations, right?
Into deliberations, exactly.
So famously, there's this thing of like indictments and grand juries where like any prosecutor can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Like historically, like, is there any reason that you think this could have happened? We have an indictment. But when you have like hostile occupation happening, so historically, like the really good precedent is during the American Revolution. No jury would indict anyone for anything for the king. Like, fuck the king, right? And so they started extraditing people to England to put them in front of grand juries. And that was like a huge driver of the revolution, is like they're literally kidnapping people to other countries to prosecute them for things that aren't true, that they failed to get a grand jury to indict them for. And now the same thing is happening across the US, and especially in DC, in these places where there are these hostile military illegal occupations of American cities. Grand juries are refusing to indict people for anything, even when that's like the like they have this guy that threw a sandwich at a Gestapo is like felony terrorism. It's like no, right? Like on the one hand, it's just not, but on the other hand, like they wouldn't have indicted him for anything because they all would have agreed with him. And it's wild to see that becoming such a popular thing right now.
I think there's a really good point there too, that a lot of people, you know, there's different layers of how you're going to want to interact with the oppressive system, that some people will be loud. We're not being subtle by having this live stream here. We're not going to be the kind of people that'll be insider information towards these facilities and organizations as a whole. So it is important for people to know, like, that jury nullification, even mentioning it, and this is something I know because I have some friends that have been on grand jury trials, mentioning it will get you removed from even the possibility of it. So if you have intent, you understand that the case that you might be facing is something related to, say, like a monetary theft of something of the sort, and you decide you want to be, you know, one of the people in that 12 Angry Men conversation, it's important to understand that information of providing that, or your leaning or your preference, is what you don't want to reveal, right? I think a lot of people, they confuse the mentality of being loud, proud, upfront, and do not obey in advance with what would arguably be closer to like infiltration methodology and understanding that. I think everyone fits along that. So like, there's a lot of people I know who have been enlisted or part of these organizations of enforcement when it comes to law, and they've decided they don't want to be a part of it. And I find that admirable as well, because it shows this person of great standing wants to leave, but also exactly what you've described. You want people who are holding the riot shields that go, wait, these guys are right. I mean, I saw it a lot with a lot of Nepal music festivals that they were showing as well, of a lot of the actual riot police themselves there began to just turn around and join the protesters. They're like, what do you mean they hurt my friends and family? And humanizing it is an important thing, because the goal of those systems is to dehumanize you, right? The goal of those trials is to attempt to claim some objectification, but also remove the human aspect of, okay, this person may have committed something that you would say on paper is a crime, but they were stealing baby formula for their child. And that changes, that brings back the morality of saying, despite the enforcement and structure of this hegemony, you can choose to individually reject that. And and I think people knowing that in advance, that pulls back to the tenet of not obeying in advance. I know some people who will show up to protest with full intent of understanding that if they continue to stand in place, they will be arrested for obstructing. But they know that that's going to happen, and they choose to do so. And I find that extremely admirable, because they understand that the way they want to physically, you know, interfere with that is at a level that causes resistance in a legal capacity. And I know people who want to just be extremely loud and pull back on that. Understanding that there's a layer, there's a spot for everyone, despite how unradical you might seem. If you have any sense of empathy, there's going to be a spot for you to interact with it.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot to this whole not obeying in advance thing that I think is tough for a lot of people, I think, on these apps specifically. Like, you know, I self-censor about, you know, the things going on in the middle, the systematic elimination of like the people who are, you know, living in the
we're dancing around the word right now.
You know, dancing around the word, right? And is this obeying in advance? Well, okay, here's the thing. Like, there's some people who can stand in front of a tank, and then there's some people who have like 2 little kids at home and they cannot stand in front of a tank, right? It would be irresponsible. And so, like, you know, if you don't want to lose your channel because you've got a lot of people listening to you, it is responsible to not stand in front of the tank, right? Like, I don't post all of the music festivals I go to, and I don't post the ones in advance, and I don't talk about a lot of the actions that I do because it will like eliminate my ability to address people who maybe have an actual need, right?
Mhm.
So there's obeying in advance. Don't let that creep into, and now I don't talk about anything ever. Don't let that creep into, I've got to like make it seem like I'm less radical than I am. But you can do stuff like algo speak, which has it's new speak, from 1984. But if you're good at new speak from 1984 and you can use like, the distribution networks, then you are infiltrating, right?
Yeah.
And so like being a participant, being a jury participant does not mean that you're upholding an unequal justice system. It means you're infiltrating it.
Mhm.
And so the whole being an infiltrator thing, like if you live in the center of the country and you're at all in any way kind of alternative, that like the other parents or whatever are kind of policing your behavior, and you can't be too out there or too radical about a lot of different things, or they will call the state on you, right?
Mhm.
And so you can be a better infiltrator by going to the PTA meetings and not using the same words as the people who are chronically online are using, but instead finding like hearing what words they're using and then couching your methodology you think that would be more equitable in the words that they're already using, right? Stuff like that can be far more radical and radically impactful than you just shouting about what you think, right? And if you
Yeah.
like release the need for the points, and you can be like, no, I'm pretty centrist actually. I just feel like all of our kids should be able to eat. You can really, really shift someone's window over by super centrist. I just think
Yeah.
how they should get food and education. Like that you've already like infiltrated and you've done so much, but if you're like, no, I am unlike you and I believe that we should be good people, unlike you who think we should be bad people, that you're not getting anyone with that, and so there's a lot to it that is it's very nuanced, but it feels like an easy answer to just say, oh, well, just say this or just say that or just wear this shirt or whatever thing.
I think one of the things I always try and encourage people to do when they're first trying to figure out where they fit is weaponize your privilege, right? Understanding that, like myself as a cishet presenting male, there's privileges I have about how people might see me, my voice, code switching in a particular capacity. Like right now, I'm not speaking the way I would casually in that because we're in a conversation with arguably tons of people that could be watching and it's recorded. But understanding that privilege of like, when we go to music festivals and the groups I've interacted with that do that, they'll often have bigger, white, tall men at the front of the line to interact with the police. And having that as a guideline of beginning saying, how am I being perceived in this and how can I interact with that? That helps with infiltration methodology as well, because the person who looks like me, say at an airport, versus someone that looks like you, Liz, or CJ, is going to have different levels of attention. And you could feed into that, understanding that they're looking for that behavior, that I'm going to be a honeypot of attention and attraction, means that I can utilize that. If I can't directly interfere or remove it, pressing into that mentality to create that, again, obfuscated mentality of what you're actually doing is important. It's to play on the expectation. And that's why I keep saying there's a place for everyone, because even people who aren't as able or aren't a person of color like myself or are in that capacity, there's a different degree of how you might feel safe or be able to interact. It's a privilege to have family and not, because the people who are revolutionary enough to be able to put themselves in a physical danger like that have the privilege of not necessarily either being worried or having that support system of people that would have that same worry. So it's not asking the person with 3 kids to join you on the front lines of getting hit by non-lethals. It's asking them, hey, Can you coordinate with your neighbors to start creating a mutual aid group? Do you have a community garden? Oh, you have a yard. How about we set that up?
A
The
community garden.
material impact of that is important.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and there's a lot to code switching. I have a little tiny cross necklace I can put on, and I can talk in my Texas accent, and I can really pass if you want me to pass. But then, I'm like, all right, ladies and gents, or really just, gender is fake, and then I have like this whole like second look to me. Like the code switch matters, you can code switch in, and stand in the front. And like if you're a tall white guy with like a baby face and you got a button down shirt you wear to your IT job every day, and you just look real friendly, open face, it really nice, like that can, and you're helping lead the singing part of the, singing at a protest is incredible OPSEC, because honestly it like de-escalates the violence in the area. Like it's a whole lot of little on the ground micro decisions. You're not talking to people's prefrontal cortex, you are talking to their hindbrain. Tailor your messaging, your signaling, what you're wearing, what you're saying, the words you're using, and how your face looks at all times to people's hindbrain, to the riot police's hindbrain specifically, because you want to keep your comrades safe. Like that's really the best way to do so. There's a lot of little like positions in the music festival safety crowd that need to be filled by a whole lot of different kind of people. So
Have you guys seen the I've Had It podcast / YouTube channel? Like the things you're saying keep making me think of there's this lady, it's like this, I don't know, she was some kind of actor. I'm not familiar with her work, but she's it's like a middle-aged, middle-class white lady from the Midwest, right? And people I think go on her show expecting a certain kind of perspective. Is definitely very different from what she brings to the table. And she just did one with Hakeem Jeffries where she was like so aggressive with like everything you're saying is bullshit, and like you're doing the opposite, and like everything you would want to say to him, right? But she's done a bunch of these that are really good, and she in fact also has done several with Hassan, and they've been guests for each other and stuff, and it's pretty good. Like if this kind of thing that you're talking about, I think this practice is like sort of catching on, and because she's like not like she's not using any of the like Marxist Leninist language.
Yeah.
And I don't think she would. Like I really don't think she even believes in that. It's just this like obvious bullshit of the Democrats today is like the thing to talk about. And it's fascinating too because like sort of like what Comrade was saying earlier is like I am no fan of Gavin Newsom, right? He is way to the right of me. And yet when he attacks people even further to the right of me, like that's great. Right. And I agree with most of that. So it's this kind of complicated, like I would way rather have someone to the left of him than him, right? But that doesn't mean that like there aren't aspects of what he's doing that I'm not co-invested in. And I think that's true with all of these organizations that we're talking about. And like if like the DSA in particular, it's like excuse me, I started a DSA in my junior college with a group of friends, and like we were doing organizing against. We had like multiple active neo-Nazi cells on campus, and we don't anymore. And there's lots of good stuff you can do. There's lots of important stuff you can do, and it's a good like more than just like the public face that it presents and like the consensus that it reaches with the people who actually show up and participate in conversations. Like that's great. And I think in particular in San Francisco right now, the DSA has become the sort of the closest thing to a left consensus where it's giving these like very caveated, very couched, very like I don't know, not the radical perspective at all, right? But definitely well to the left of center, and maybe something like the average of that left umbrella in San Francisco. And people have to show up and participate in the conversation if they want their piece of the Overton window to be part of what makes it through.
Yeah.
And
And you could continuing the idea of threat modeling, like what benefit does it provide? Like my mentality is, if there's someone who's an enemy of my enemy, but I don't necessarily consider them my friend, so to speak, them existing, choosing to create deference, noise, resistance towards that enemy of mine, even if I don't inherently agree with arguably anything they say, even not saying anything or simply just letting that interaction occur in your absence is a type of like response, right? Like a lot of celebrity gossip or like what's in the zeitgeist of conversations, sometimes I won't participate because it's meant to be a conversation that's detracting you from the material interaction. What is the goal, right? So my mentality is like, what is the point of those criticisms when you can redirect those towards the groups? Like instead of it, I don't necessarily believe in putting down other groups like that. I believe more in directly enforcing and entrenching your preference. You don't agree with that group? Cool. You're more left. Well, how are you promoting and creating positive impact to that group? What attention are you bringing to them? Don't put it on top of the other, because again, that goes into the sort of capitalist individualist mentality of, if you look at it as a zeitgeist you're trying to shift as a whole, a river, you don't get mad at one rock for subtly being in the way when you want it all to go this way. You want to adjust to what it's creating and try and shift the intended effect. We're shifting ideas, concepts, systems that are larger than any individual organization or person contributing to it. So understanding how to interact with that hyper object of how it could affect or shape itself over time, I think is key, because it tells you that you don't necessarily like have to exist in contention. Like I am not a capitalist by any means, so I will never really interact with those sets of people. And my ideal is that there's less of those groups readily available as we shift the Overton window back. But that doesn't necessarily detract from the fact, I think, them creating positive effort to push us that direction is inherently wrong. And I think it's a nuance between understanding that someone can arguably have the wrong ideas, belief systems towards how you feel, but still materially impact in a positive way. Like I volunteered with people at soup kitchens who were wearing red hats, and I just didn't talk to them about it. They could tell just by my physical appearance as a brown man, I probably wasn't on the same page with them, but we were both there serving the community. And I understood that no matter what happened, as long as I'm not altercating or creating that issue, they don't have ammunition or conversation to say, oh yeah, look, we went to this and this openly communist person started a fight with everyone at the food kitchen. No, you're going to be like, well, I don't know. I mean, we kind of all just served food and left. And then it's going to erode at the idea, the individualization they have of what threat you are. And it gets people to readdress that. Because no one is going to, well, no one's a broad stroke. The majority of people have an ego in thinking they understand things. So it's easier to show them otherwise than convince them that they're incorrect, because they, of their own faculty, through their own volition and their own misinformation system, have to navigate and eventually break that apart. There's nothing stronger than someone's argument than their own suspicion, right? Their own paranoia. That intrinsic motivation that gets people to reconsider that idea is always going to be impactful. Now, that doesn't mean always tolerate in that space. You know, everyone's going to have their own tolerance for that behavior too. I was uncomfortable in that situation. If I knew that person was going to be there regularly, I might change soup kitchens. It's fine.
Right.
That's completely fine. No one's obligated. But understanding that friction is where that magic happens. That's where the actual effort of radicalizing or convincing or chatting with people, that space of uncomfortable insecurity of what could occur and how to approach it in a safe manner, is where people change. It has to be a system that you're also willing to expose. It's the whole point of trust and vulnerability. You're exposing that you feel this particular way. Like you said, Liz, changing the language, I think, is a big thing. I was actually at a wedding this week for one of my close family friends, and I was chatting with someone who's enlisted, and he was talking about how he firmly believes he's a capitalist. And I just turned to him and I said, I want to challenge you on your language. And how about we take away those descriptions and charged mentalities, the propaganda you and I might have internalized just by these words, and let's talk about what we agree on. And turns out he's much more egalitarian than he thought. And the way I always approach it is we likely agree that everyone, regardless of whether you like them or not, should have food, water, shelter, education, and medicine. And starting there, and when they say that, I go, congrats, you're not a capitalist. And just breaking down that language already lets them know, oh, it's an idea that I may have been misrepresented or provided to with particular language, but the practice of it is what really boils down to. At the end of the day, thinking you're a good person versus actually doing things that make people believe you're a good person are two very different things.
Totally, yes.
There's a really good example. Oh, sorry.
I feel like a lot of folks are very confused by a lot of these words. Like, for example, capitalism and money are like deeply, deeply confused, right? If we just didn't have money, then there would be no problems. And it's like money was invented by animals who did not have a civilization.
And it's recent patch, you know? We've been doing it for a while.
Like, yeah, a long time. Like, and money predates capital, right? As a concept, right? It's accounting that actually creates the concept of capital and things like compounding returns and stuff like that, right? And money lending and things like that. And like, what are we allowed to do with money lending and capital lending, you know? You know, there's a lot of currency as a concept versus money, right? There's currency, there's money, and then there's capital, and those are all different things. And I think a lot of people are very confused that people who want there to be food and medicine also want there to no one has money and can have nice things. And also anyone can just walk in your house and take your stuff. Like, you know, like that's kind of this like straw man world that they've created in their head. They're like, what's the opposite of capitalism? No money and you just everyone has whatever. And you're like, no, dude, like chill out. Like, you know, it's just the idea that like venture capital and things like that should be able to buy elections is bad, you know, like, you know, we're talking about the largest and most extreme ends and the like weird stuff that happens when you don't have any rules, you know. And it's stuff like that, you know, like there's a lot of daylight in between. And so get rid of all money and now no one has problems. Like, no, that obviously will not solve all problems. That's silly. But like, I mean, what they're usually exposed to is this straw man argument that like a 14-year-old put together on Tumblr, and they're like, see, this is what the left wants.
Yeah.
And so if you're just like, let's start with what we agree on, you fully circumvent that whole capitalism and all the symbols. We are on war with symbols. Like nobody wants to play that game really. And it tires everyone out except for teenagers. So yeah.
There's this really good example of that that just happened in San Francisco, which is like wild. And I think people like almost no one appreciates how insane the story is at this point, which is this this recall that just happened. So basically like 3 years ago, and before that, like the right wing in San Francisco has put a lot of effort into making it really easy to recall people. And they've started, it's like in 2022, they recalled a whole bunch of like popular candidates who had just won elections, because you only need like 10% of the voters from the previous election to sign a petition to recall someone. Like it's crazy. So unless they won by like over 90%, it's easy to recall them. And so they started doing that, and they recalled all these popular people. And then the mayor gets to just replace them with whoever they want. And it's always like some psychotic alternative, right? So this effort was led by an AstroTurf network that was funded entirely by like a half dozen billionaires.
I've heard about this, yeah.
Yeah.
My friend has this nonprofit called the Phoenix Project that is tracking all of that dark money and building these graphs. It's great. So like that, and they're updating it because they just reshuffled all of it. So like after the election, they actually failed for most of their candidates. And they got this mayor who is an oligarch, but is not the one that they wanted, and they're trying to figure that out. And so they've recombined all their nonprofits into new nonprofits, but they're still sending lies from 6 different fake nonprofits direct mail to everyone every day. So you get 6 postcards with the same lies from 6 different nonprofits, and it's like, well, this must be true, right? And so people vote on that basis, and it's wild. So one of the people who was installed as a supervisor by that dark money network was called Joel Engardio for District 4. And he was one of the people who, he was a journalist who was specifically paid to facilitate those recall efforts 3 years ago, which is how he got involved in this dark money network. And then they put him up as a candidate. So the wild thing that happened is there's a huge park in San Francisco, Golden Gate Park, that's, I think, significantly larger than Central Park in New York. It's a huge park. And at the far end of it is the ocean. So there's like a neighborhood above, a neighborhood below, and then there's a road at the end that connects the two. And it was called the Great Highway. And there was a ballot measure to close that and turn it into a park, like make the whole thing a park so people are not crossing. There's like basically a freeway on the beach, like is crazy. And and it was already like mostly closed. It was like closed. It was only open on the weekends or something since COVID. So it passed by wide margin. So like 60-something% of people voted for it. And so they closed it. It's turned into a park now. But the thing is, the far right, particularly far right Chinese people in San Francisco were really, 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 really mad about that. And they happen to be in that district in huge numbers. And so there are like this whole genre of Chinese MAGA. Like literally they have the red hat and it's MAGA in Chinese. And like it's wild, right?
Yeah.
And they're like they have this whole like set of language for criticizing these kinds of ideas. Which so like first of all, it's wrong. Like there's this longstanding view in right-wing Chinese business in San Francisco that like removing vehicle access is harmful for local businesses. It's not true, but it's been wielded extremely effectively as a weapon that gets people to vote for things. And they've demanded reparations in the past. Like for example, the Embarcadero Freeway being like destroyed by the earthquake. Chinatown demanded reparations in the form of a subway, and they got it. And it was like the most expensive infrastructure project in the history of the city. It's like billions of dollars. And it's like also nobody like rides it. Like it's one of the lowest riderships of any station. But they got it by like using this story that removing vehicle access is bad for local business, so vote for these things. So what did they do? They recalled their like oligarch installed supervisor that they had just like the far right had just installed this guy who helped them like recall all these popular left-wing people in the past, and that's who they turned their wrath on, is like their puppet.
Nice.
Like it's wild.
Nice.
It is wild.
But now the mayor gets to pick someone else for that position, and it's probably going to be somebody worse, right? Like people are saying maybe Manny.
Yeah.
So
Somebody said
yikes.
it comes from being terrified of communism. There's lots of anti-socialist signs of people's yards. Like, yeah, a lot of people who are the MAGA Chinese folks who are in SF specifically, like, left during the revolution they had. And they were persecuted and that kind of stuff. And so they basically, came here to escape persecution.
Well, they left because the fascists lost the Civil War.
Right.
So that whole thing in Taiwan, they called them the 49ers because it was 1949 that all the fascists fled and took over Taiwan and started their own little Holocaust and everything.
Yeah.
But it's funny because the Chinese MAGA in San Francisco called like Taiwanese liberals, what do they call them? Boba liberals, because like Boba is from there. So like Chinese people who are not for Trump are like Boba liberals and they're pro-Taiwan, It's strange because they don't even agree. Like those groups are not even aligned.
Right.
this wild perspective that Chinese
There's
MAGA has.
options on the right as there are on the left. Like there are a lot of people, you know, and this is something I think I was talking to Show Me Your Mask, you know, they're like a non-binary indigenous person that they talk about orcas killing, yeah, I mean, orcas eating yachts, right? A lot of the time.
Ah,
We're like, you know, we cannot dismiss these people because they are intelligent. Like there are plenty of doctors and lawyers and smart people who have a lot of thoughts about why they're super conservative. And like there are just as many factions over there and just as many people who are like, I don't agree, but a lot of times on the right, there is a bent towards authoritarianism, and so they are better at disagree and commit than we are. So bad at disagree and commit. You know, we can't move forward unless someone agrees with us because we have so many thoughts about why, and so therefore, unless you compare all your thoughts with all of my thoughts, and we can come to an agreement as to why we disagree, then I will never understand, and we cannot work together. And it's like,
yeah,
they do not have that problem on the right. You know, if they're like, okay,
yeah,
well, you're not a Christian and you're not a this and you don't think and this and this and this, but you want to do one of the things that I want to do. And so I guess let's work together and then later we'll turn on you, you know, and they're like, they just sort of,
yeah,
or you'll get fixed in your brain by participating in my reality. So, you know, and they just like disagree and commit.
yeah.
And that is an intelligent move to disagree.
Yeah. I do have to head out, but you just reminded me of this phrase that I always think about. It's leftists fall in love, fascists fall in line. And I think maintaining that understanding that, you know, we talked about it many times here, that perfection is the enemy of progress, that you should decide a tolerance, a particular degree of diversity of opinion and thought that you may not necessarily inherently agree with, but materially they're making the same impacts you are. That's fine. Discourse and diversity, despite us being quite a diverse set of political ideologies and inclinations, that diversity acts as friction against itself more often than it acts as a cohesion. And that's why it's pulling back towards the larger material intent, I think, is important. So I do have to head off today, though. I will be here next week. I apologize about missing the last couple of weeks. Hopefully from my working computer and a better angle and better mic. But otherwise, I appreciate it, and it's always good chatting with you.
Always good chatting with
Yeah.
you. Good to see you, friend.
See you guys.
Bye. I also have things, so I should probably head off soon too.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Do you have to go now?
I'm not right this second, but I should probably go buy like one, you know.
Oh yeah, same. Okay. So, okay, the other topic that I wanted to bring up, which I think you'll be particularly interested in, and I don't know if the other two would as much, is Gen Z.
Yeah.
So,
Let's gossip about Gen Z behind their backs or right in front of them.
well, so like a couple of things just to start it off is like I keep going back to Max Planck, who said progress happens one funeral at a time. Physics, like the current physics, doesn't become popular because everybody like realizes that it's true and it fits the evidence and accepts it. It becomes popular because everybody who hasn't learned the current evidence dies, and then new people are going through college learning the current state of the art, and then that's what's popular. And there are versions of this in every field. Niels Bohr also said it, Paul Krugman. I mean, there's people in everywhere from sociology to economics. You know, every field has some version of that. Some luminary has said. So when we look at today, like the swing group that put Trump over the edge to win was young single men who at the time accepted this story that it immediately was clear is not true, and he's now at -30 with that group, right? And like they're not going to forget that. Like these are not stupid people. These are not kids that grew up with
Make memories. Yeah.
right, and they don't have fetal alcohol syndrome and lead poisoning like the boomers did, and like they have the capacity to critically think. You'd be like, oh, okay, that was like I fucked up there, and like I'm not gonna do that again. Particularly because like there's this poll that just came out of people who are who voted for Harris or Trump, who are Gen Z, who are male or female, and the issues, the topics that are most important in their lives ranked from like 1 to 13, right? And so for uh female voted for Harris, male voted for Harris, female voted for Trump. The top 4 issues that are all around financial independence and not needing to worry about money, right? For males who voted for Trump, the top issue is the most important thing in their life is being able to have children. For everyone else, is the least important thing. It's literally at the bottom. Marriage and having children is like number 13.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you can see, right? Like who is that? Right? It's these like incels. It's these like, you know, the young men who nobody wants to fuck, and like it's everyone else's fault.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you could follow the groypers down this path of like I blame everyone that nobody wants to fuck me, or you know, you could like do some community gardening. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing hotter than like
Yeah.
dressing like Mao and like growing some vegetables, and then
Yeah.
everybody will want to fuck you, right?
Yeah.
And I think like the like the alt right Gen Z is so uh conspicuous because he's so exceptionally uncommon and uncharacteristic.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about who's going to still be alive in 20 years and what the breakdown of alt this, alt that is going to be like, there's not going to be a lot of those people.
Yeah.
And that's very different from past generations.
It's true. I mean, so one thing that happened with Gen Z, I mean, this is something that because I have a Gen Z child, you know, like back in 2020, they were 16 and, you know, working on their like 15, 16. And so like, a lot of what they spent their time doing during the pandemic was on YouTube, right? And they were like trying to stream and they were like playing the games that they like to play. And what game did they like to play? Well, it was like Hearts of Iron 4, some stuff about World War II, basically. It's a game about World War II and getting really into the details of like, if you do this decision had been made at this point, then it would have gone differently, you know. And so, guess who likes to play a lot of those games of like, let's game it out, see how it would have happened if the other side had won. Like, who wants to play that game? People who like the mustache man. And so, like, you know, when you are watching those videos, you just get suggested the next video, and eventually you've got Andrew Tate on your homepage because you like World War II. And like the World War II to alt-right pipeline, history liking child to alt-right pipeline is intense.
Yeah.
Intense. Um, and it's largely born out of loneliness and how like the absolution of guilt around the loneliness, right? You're not lonely because of of that you are literally just not leaving your house. And a lot of times it's not that they hold super abhorrent views in the beginning. They just aren't leaving their house. For a lot of kids, it was the pandemic that made them not leave their house. But that your brain, your subconscious brain does not understand I'm in my house because pandemic. It thinks I'm in my house because no one loved me. And so it doesn't matter that you weren't leaving the house for that reason. It matters that your subconscious thinks that you're not leaving the house because some story. And then it doesn't matter the way that you feel, your conscious mind will create a justification for why you feel how you feel. And whether or not that is why you feel how you feel is immaterial. And so here it is, a justification for why you feel how you feel. It's because the left said that everyone should be sad, and that's what they want, is for everyone to be sad. And it's just it's an easy story for your mind to latch onto, especially if you are young and you don't have a lot of stories for your mind to latch onto. And you can't look at that and go like, oh, I, I feel lonely And it's for a reason. If I listen to any stories about why I feel lonely, it might change how I perceive myself or the world around me. You're 15, you just don't have that, hardware on board. And like what I did was, my kid was signed into the PlayStation 4 on YouTube, and so we would just watch left-wing stuff on the PlayStation 4 on their YouTube to like offset their algorithm. But it like that was because I'm a computer science professor and I know that you can do that. How many people didn't do that with their kid and didn't know how to stop the pipeline from pulling them in? Their answer was, okay, no more YouTube because and then what? Your kid's not going to find a way to access YouTube? That's not what's going to happen. You're just going to make it seem like you don't want them to know that they should have been the ruler of the world or whatever thing. And so you have to just argue with them. And also during that critical time period, your kid wants you to be upset. That's kind of their whole thing, is upsetting. And that's like very normal. It doesn't mean they're a bad person, but also like, so by taking this like viewpoint that clearly upsets your mom, you're like getting all kinds of dopamine, all kinds of rewards. Just like, there's a reason that I'm lonely, and this makes my mom mad, who is the worst. And so therefore, this is a good story. It's like a lot of really simple things, but they sound like really concrete justifications for someone who literally does not have a prefrontal cortex yet. Like it does not grow until 25. And so you've got all these kids who are like listening to these post hoc justifications for why they feel the way they feel, who are not abhorrent people, who are not ugly, who are not sad, who are not somebody who spent 20 years in their mom's basement. Like they are a 21-year-old. They look fine. They have great personal hygiene. They have a job, and they're just like, oh, I feel bad all the time. It's women? Yes. And they kind of go with that for a while, and then they go, oh, this didn't really help. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah.
makes sense to me now. And they like are
Right.
changing. And it's like that was the story I saw with not just my kid, but like their friends and a number of like
Yeah.
riff-free kids. It was a lot of them.
So like a couple of connections with what you just said though is the youngest Gen Z is currently like 13, right? The oldest Gen Z is currently like 28.
Yeah.
And so like they're just getting their prefrontal cortex and the capacity for like critical thinking and like real long-term planning and like you see them at orgies obviously. And one of the realizations that I see Gen Z coming to is the realization that everyone comes to when you go to enough orgies, which is that your success with other people has absolutely nothing to do with the way that you look. With all of these things that incels will not stop talking about, you will see like whatever your stereotype of like the grossest imaginable person is, you will see that person getting down with way more people than you. And it's like, oh, it has nothing to do with that, right? It's all about your like approach, your the energy that you're bringing to the table and like the way that you approach other people and talk to them and like trial and error and like these things that were obvious before everybody was like born online.
Mhm.
And that it's very different from the way that like the internet works and that like you have to actually like go talk to people and like be friendly and be interesting and like it has absolutely nothing to do with the way that you look. No matter how you look, there is some slice of the pie of people that's super into that, right?
Yes.
And so like how do you find them? How do you talk to them? It has nothing to do with the things that you are hearing from beauty magazines or like you need this product, you need this hairstyle, you need whatever. It's like zero influence on those outcomes.
They just want to sell you something. They just want you to buy something.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's like anybody that wants you to feel bad about who you are generally is trying to take advantage of you. Like, even like I don't want people to feel like what I'm saying is that those kids are incapable, their brains just don't work good. It's just like literally 17 effects later is too much when you literally don't have the prefrontal cortex. You're thinking about the effect, the immediate effect, or like the immediate, like 2 steps, maybe 3 steps effect, right? That's not a long-term plan. That's like a week of time, you know? And it feels like you're totally able to do critical reasoning because you could hear bad ideas, but like, there are frameworks that are a lot that make it easier for people who are under the age of 25 to do this stuff. Because they were invented by like ancient Greeks who didn't make it past 35 or 40, right? Like, so they were not spending a whole ton of years with these capabilities, right? And so there's all these frameworks that are for that, like rhetoric, right? Like the formal rhetoric, if you look
Symbolic
at,
logic.
yeah, logic. Logic is not the absence of emotion. It is an actual formal system of reasoning, right? Like when you say someone is like bad or dumb or stupid, these are not, they don't mean anything, just like good doesn't mean anything. You need words like clear, and like when you say logical, you mean like, there's evidence and reasons for each element of your plan or system of things. It's not just this is bad and so we have to throw it out, but it's like here, this effect because of these 3 actions causes in 30% of people for this failure rate to happen. And when we stack all of those up, right, you have to kind of by construction build an argument. And that there's things about that it takes it's not taught in most schools. It's really not. Formal debate is not taught in most schools. Rhetoric is not taught. Logic is not taught. I know people
Yeah.
who didn't take a logic class until like their 2nd degree. And I'm like, what? You didn't know about the difference between and or? Oh no. And it's just like,
It's
yeah.
funny because like you get like so like for example, like what you're talking about is like propositional logic, formal logic with like symbolic logic. We have these like systems of like
It
algebra of arguments. Everybody who does computer science has to learn that. Like
has to
that's but it doesn't necessarily like click
and
for them that like everything works that way, right? Like
yeah,
George Boole wasn't just like pulling it out of a hat, right? Like he's building on sentential logic to create Boolean logic, and
right. Yeah.
you
It
can
can't,
think about everything that way.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like taking a crash, like I think, what is it? Hank Green has a crash course in critical thinking, just critical thinking and like how to break apart an idea and like what are all the words that you can use to evaluate an idea. There's hundreds of words that you can use to evaluate an idea. It's sort of like the feelings wheel, but for arguments, right? And I kind of want there to be, there's stuff
Interesting.
like the logical fallacies, like at your fallacy dot is that like have ways for you to spot problems, but I want like a big list of words, like what are all the words that you could use to evaluate an idea? Does this have statistical significance? Does this have
and
rhetorical validity? you know it's
and like what's the CI of the significance, right?
Mm,
Like yes, you have a significant sample, but is it representative? And
yeah.
like what is the level? Do you understand how to measure the confidence of the claim that you're making? Like what is
Is
it,
data
right?
transparent? Is it available? Are you aware of how it was collected?
What's
Uh,
the chi-square on that? Like
yeah,
what's the probability that it's just
random
you
chance.
randomly picked people that agree with you?
Yeah, exactly. Out of 100 people, 100 of them agreed with me. Okay, but where did you meet those people? Oh, it was at the convention of people who agree with me. Yeah, I feel like maybe, yeah. So there's like a lot to that.
Yeah.
And that's why we have peer review, is because you also can't look at all the things. It's so many things that you can use to evaluate an idea that you're going to look at like 16 of them and there's 500. And so somebody has to come along and go, okay, but you didn't say amongst these 7 things, this doesn't address these.
Yeah.
And that's
I
why,
also think this topic that we're talking about is the reason that people are so bad at using AI.
yes, it's 100% that.
And
That's what I teach when I teach it is like, okay, good means nothing. You never got bad output because also bad means nothing. You can have imprecise input. You can have inaccurate input. You can have unclear input. You can have, you know, uncreative and output. And if you want the opposite of that, you have to say, make it more the thing that I want. You know, I always say like feedback should be specific, actionable, and kind. Like if it's not specific, you can't address it. If it's not actionable, if there's nothing you can do for it, then you can't do anything about it. And so you got to have specific, actionable stuff to get good outputs, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's just prompt engineering in the end, is
Yeah.
for other people.
It's management, it's coordination, it's organization, you know? Like I feel like people struggle to get the outputs that I get, and I realize that like the hallucination that I'm having is like, this is great, it works great for me because I'm very precise and like specific in the directions that I give because I'm a teacher, and you have to be precise and specific and actionable and all of your stuff when you teach. And so, and also if you're going to manage some people and you want them to do the thing, you got to be precise, you got to be specific, and you got to be consistent. And like if you don't, if you haven't spent a decade doing that, maybe it's hard. Maybe you know, the first time you're a manager, you kind of suck at it, you know, and that's the same thing for every job. So like, that's what's going on for most people. Just not managers anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody else says literacy and logic is hard for people in survival mode. Yeah, literally. Your brain is not functioning at the logical mode. It's functioning at the survival mode. Yank power to the bridge, you know. Full power to impulse. So
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Cool.
Well, I gotta run soon, but
Another one in the bag.
another one in the bag. CJ's got everything recorded on the purple one and the red one with the play
The red
button.
one. Can you put the recordings on the purple one?
There's VODs. There you can set them as VODs, videos on demand, but they go away after a while, so I don't know.
I'm just posting them on the record.
Yeah, I try to post
And I
them.
was thinking we should put these on like a podcast at some point.
Yeah, like a podcast list or something. That would be good. Yeah.
Is there like a Jitsi for podcasting? I wonder. I'll look into that.
Yeah, let me know if there is. I'll run a server, or you have one also. So yeah, be good.
Cool.
Everyone, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming to hang out.
TTFN.
Yeah.